think it's very important to point out that there is not an automatic trade-off between economic growth and environmental sustainability, and Nanosolar is a perfect example of that. We have a carbon footprint that's among the lowest of any fuel mix of any renewable energy or other source of energy, and yet we can sell at a price point which is competitive with conventional fossil fuels as we have this ultra-low carbon footprint, as we create green jobs in California. There is no inherent trade-off. It's not some basic fundamental tenet of logic. It's anecdotal. It's based on individual companies, individual markets, individual products. For solar, what AB 32 has done has incented the utilities to think about renewable energies at a large scale for the first time. Many of you, when you think about a solar panel, you probably think about it on a residential home that was put on after the home was built, a retrofit installation. Perhaps someone came to your house with a van, pulled out 20 panels, put them on your roof for a period of days and left. That's not the solar industry that is going to be growing in California. California is going to be a utility scale market, and this already exists in the Sun Belt of Europe, anywhere from several megawatts to several tens of megawatts of power plants sited near municipalities at the 12.5 kilovolt substation level, a distributed utility model where if you're in the middle of that power plant, you see panels to the horizon. Growing out those power plants is directly dependent upon the incentives that utilities are given to do this. If the utilities required to develop renewable energy sources as part of their fuel mix, they will build power plants to satisfy those requirements. Those power plants will create jobs in California. They will allow environmental sustainability in California. They will allow profitable businesses to continue to be profitable all at the same time. There is no inherent trade-off. We believe AB 32 is good for business. It creates jobs in California. It's a job creator, not only for the solar industry, but for many different sectors, certainly throughout renewables. So if there's one message I can leave you with today, don't believe that there's an automatic trade-off between environmental sustainability and economic growth. Both can exist at the same time, and Nanosolar is a perfect example.
Dan, could you talk about the existing landscape?
Yeah, just very quickly, we have seen significant job creation in clean technology with AB 32 in place, period. You know, it has driven new companies to be established, new jobs to be created. Indeed, more broadly, we've seen jobs lost in this state as we've seen jobs lost across the entire country. But within this specific area of clean tech, the aggressive approach that California has taken to clean energy has, in fact, made it an attractive place for investment and job creation, period. And Dorothy, I'd say, what about China? Aggressive policy to promote clean energy, highly aggressive policy. And a million new jobs created in China around the clean tech industry, and many, many, many more. We are losing our leadership role in virtually every one of the major clean technology categories to the Chinese. Why wouldn't we do the same here in California and push that we do the same federally? The history of energy and environmental regulation in this country is that it often starts first in California. We show that it works well, and then we adopt it nationally. Why not, number one, take note of the Chinese, be aggressive in this state, and make it happen on a national level, either in the waning days of this Congress, in the lame duck session, or with a new Congress coming in?
Brian, I'd like to start with you on the next one. What happens if AB 32 is suspended? What happens with your business?
Well, our panels will go to power plant developers outside the state of California, likely outside the United States, very likely to other parts of the world. And they'll create jobs there and stimulate the economy in those locations. And, you know, from the perspective of an environmental impact, we'll see a lot of development of technologies that are either environmental remediation or sustainability grow overseas as well. We work with companies, for example, every day that help us do as much green manufacturing as possible, that lower our embedded energy in our product, that let us do green chemistry and so forth. So all the ancillary companies that are involved in that will have less incentive to grow in the state as well. So not only the manufacturing, but the entire value chain around the manufacturing will be diminished here. We'll see less jobs downstream, and it will hurt the economy, we strongly believe.
Dorothy.
You have a manufacturing facility in California, and the way in which you got that facility sited here and built here is in large part because you got a sales tax exemption for manufacturing equipment.
That's not true.
Oh, I thought you just told me that this morning.
No, that's helpful, but we built out the manufacturing several years beforehand.
Okay. Well, I love to talk about China, and it's probably a whole nother panel. Maybe you'll invite me back. But the point is that if we want to get the benefit of the jobs associated with green tech development or clean tech development, we've got to create an environment here that's going to attract and maintain manufacturing. They've done that in China. We may be innovative masters, but we're not going to be able to build things significantly here unless we have a better business climate. That's how we're going to compete. What California's role should be is not trying to lower our own emissions. Our role should be dedicating investment, policies, or whatever to make sure that the innovation happens here, that the R&D happens here, that the first stage development happens here, and that the manufacturing happens here as well. What we've done is we cut off that last real big job growth side of it. What happened to biotech in California? It never did manufacture here. The internet revolution that you're all very familiar with here started in California, and they started building things in California. Where's Intel now? They don't do things in California anymore in terms of manufacturing. Craig Barrett left and said, I won't put any more manufacturing in California. How are we going to get the green tech manufacturing here? I haven't heard an answer to that. Raising our energy costs isn't the way to create manufacturing in California.
Anthony?
Yeah, just real quickly. Again, I agree that we definitely need to do a good job of creating a friendly business environment in California. I think some of the recent sales tax exemptions have been beneficial in drawing companies to California, especially in the area of clean tech. But I was recently on participated in a panel which included a lot of the leaders who are making these investments, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars coming into the California economy to create manufacturing capacity and other types of businesses in this sector. And the number one thing they said, which was important to their investment, was a durable policy framework, a durable environmental policy framework. And they cited AB 32, they cited the low carbon fuel standard. They said, yes, these financial incentives are very, very important. They're meaningful, especially in this current economic environment. But even more important than that is this durable policy. Tell us what the rules are. We will hire the appropriate people to figure out how to make a profit under those rules. We have access to some of the most wonderful secondary education university systems here in the state. My own past with the automotive industry, which has been one of the most heavily regulated industries in the world, and often finds itself at odds with policy development. When they've sort of stepped up to the plate to address new regulations, including the new greenhouse gas standards for cars, they can make a product that makes a profit, and they can continue to develop a sustainable business. So again, I think durable policy as being kind of one of the fundamental components of sustaining a good business environment. We can't just keep starting and stopping these programs. That's probably the worst thing for a new sector.
And I would just add that Dorothy, totally agree manufacturing is important, but it's not the only attractive element of clean technology. The development here in this state of very significant intellectual property and the value around that, building companies around that, demonstrating technologies, which we have done a pretty good job at and continue to do a pretty good job at in this state, demonstrating that they work at modest and then commercial scale. And then broader project development itself. Lots and lots of jobs there, lots and lots of economic benefit. It is indeed unreliable, unpredictable policy, the on again, off again, nature of policy, and this would be the most severe form of that. 2006, California is signaling big commitment to clean energy and reducing global warming emissions. 4 or 5 years later, we've changed our mind. I think that would be a very damaging signal and would cause people to really scratch their heads. And as I said, to your point, we do indeed need to get to national legislation, but the severity of the signal that this would send to Washington, D.C., where I've spent far more time than I have in California, is a big concern. It would be front page news there, and it would dominate the debate in Congress about getting around to figuring out a cost-effective way to begin reducing climate emissions.
Dorothy, can you tell us what happens if Prop 23 is defeated?
Yeah, let me just add a little side note. It's not your question exactly, but talking about durability of policy, we're talking about cap and trade here. Low carbon fuel standard is a very expensive program, but also cap and trade. CARB developed a scoping plan that includes a lot of regulations, a lot of things that are already going on to sort of count towards the target. Those are all justified based on for various reasons. Those were programs that were put into place for good reasons. They're being counted under AB 32. What really enables AB 32 is cap and trade, which basically takes the difference beyond that. So almost by definition, they've got all the cost-effective stuff covered through current regulations. What's left needs to be done through cap and trade. What is certain about cap and trade? I mean, why should that give anybody any comfort? Do we know what the allowances are going to cost? Do companies know what they've got to do in order to meet whatever target they're going to have to meet? Do they know if they're in a category that's going to get free allowances, or do they have to buy allowances? None of that is known right now. Can you imagine what that's doing to companies who are not in your space, the 3% or so of the economy that's dedicated to clean technology? 97% of the economy is not in this business. They're simply trying to react to it and understand, what's this going to cost me? There isn't any certainty now. Also, AB 32 allows the governor to suspend it for a year, and then he can suspend it for another year, then he can suspend it for another year. That's built into AB 32. What kind of certainty does that provide? But yet that's AB 32 itself.
Dorothy, since you brought up cap and trade, Anthony, can you tell us the status of the cap and trade part of AB 32?
So, yeah, so maybe just a quick point. So cap and trade is, the way it works is it establishes an absolute limit on emissions. Then it basically creates what are called allowances, which is the right to emit a certain quantity of emissions, usually in the form of 1 metric ton of CO2. And then the questions about how those get distributed or sold into the market are being developed within ARB as we speak. The goal is to have a regulation put forth approximately by the end of the year that would sort of lay out all of those rules, define what the declining cap would be, talk about the allocation of permits, and that would be known prior to when the regulation would actually start, which is January of 2012. I think the value of having what cap and trade brings, which is a price on emissions, that's really the only way to characterize it, is that by basically providing that price signal to the industry, to consumers, you have now all of a sudden you make energy efficiency more valuable, you make clean renewable energy more profitable, you make low carbon fuels more attractive compared to, say, petroleum-based fuels. That is a wonderful complement to all of these other policies that we're implementing, including low carbon fuel standard, including renewable energy standard, because it aligns the regulatory environment with the market environment. So I think having that in place is going to be important. Well, I'll stop there.